Okay, we're almost ready to go. 1 second. Here we go. 1, 2, and okay. Can everybody hear me? Hi, Shalom, both on Breslov campus and on Facebook Live. Can you guys hear me clearly? Great. Okay, so we are continuing with where we left off last week. This amazing lesson. It has been very inspiring, also personally, to connect such an amazing teaching where wherever you are in the world, however you're feeling in your davening, how detached you feel, how overwhelmed you feel in prayers, that visit Hashem, by clapping your hands, you can literally transport yourself to be in the Holy Land, in the air of the Holy Land. Something phenomenal. How it's specifically the air that we're concerned about. We may have spoken about this last week, but by transforming the air, by clapping your hands to the quality of the air of the Holy Land, and then absorbing that air, and then saying words of prayer with that air, so your prayer is words of prayer said from the Holy Land. Now, what difference does that make? So, like we may have mentioned last week, that the floodwaters, the mabul, which Rebbe Nachman equates with confusions, bilbulim. The word for confusions in Hebrew is bilbulim, and the word for flood is mabul. So they're etymologically very similar. The Mabul waters originally did not reach the Holy Land. The Holy Land was free from being swamped and destroyed by the flood waters during the flood of Noah, right? The time of Noah. So too, in davening, if you want to have concentration, you got to be in the Holy Land. You have to be in Eretz Yisrael. This is what Rabbi Nachman is telling us, an amazing advice that no matter where you are, how low you feel, how detached, you can connect to Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel, wherever you are, by just simply clapping your hands, believing what it does, believing the immense, unbelievable power involved in just clapping hands. I'm thinking about it. It's just such amazing advice. I've been, since we started this seminar, I've started working on this lesson personally, and I feel such a change, such a difference. It helps so much. Number one, as a reminder, by clapping your hands, reminds you that you're not just, again, just routine davening like you do everyday prayer. Every morning you get up to pray shacharit, every morning mincha, every afternoon mincha, every evening arvid, and it's just like route. When you clap your hands, it's a reminder also that you're working to really, really pray in front of God. It bothers me. It matters to me. I want to make a difference in my prayers. I don't want my prayers just to go down the pipe like all my other prayers did. I want my prayers to really, really reach Hashem, because I know Hashem loves my prayers, but the distractions are just too much. The mabul, the floodwaters are too much to get that out of my head. This is what Rebbe Nachman is telling us. Clap your hands, and it literally transports you to the Holy Land. When Rebbe Nachman revealed this lesson, I think we mentioned it last week. I don't remember already because I spoke a lot about this lesson. But when Rebbe Nachman revealed this lesson, originally, approximately a month or 3 weeks before he actually gave the official lesson in which Rav Nosson recorded. This lesson was given in the year 1802, officially on the Shabbat right before Rosh Hashanah. That year, Rosh Hashanah fell on Sunday night. Rav Nosson heard this lesson on that Shabbat, and Saturday night he wrote down what he remembered from the lesson. We have both editions. In every edition of the printed Likutei Moran, you'll see 44 to 46, which are really one long lesson. At the end of 46 of the normal edition of Likutei Moran, Rav Nosson puts in the version that he wrote for himself. and plus included the format that he received from Rabbi Nachman directly, which was printed in the Likutei Moharan, right? So 3 weeks before that happened, Rav, Rabbi Nachman he just moved to the city of Breslov, and prominent guests arrived from the nearby city of Nemirov, the village Nemirov, to spend the first Shabbat of Rabbi Nachman in Breslov together with him. And it's then that Rabbi Nachman spoke to these two people, there were two individuals, about the greatness of clapping the hands during davening. One of these two people, he mocked it. He belittled this devotion. What, to clap your hands in davening? It's so like childish. It's so babyish. It's so, it doesn't match the davening. It's something so silly to clap your hands. And Rabbi Nachman, he told the person in a way off, you belittle it. And Rabbi Nachman began to explain the deeper meaning behind clapping the hands. And still, this person refused to accept the depth and the faith needed to believe in this teaching. This man went back home to Nemirov, and his a young child, a young boy, became deathly ill. And a few weeks later, 3 weeks later, before that, after he became deathly ill, this man went back to Breslov to get a bracha, a blessing from Rabbi Nachman to heal his son. And again, Rabbi Nachman, he tried to tell him about the importance of clapping the hands. And in fact, Rabbi Nachman opened a section of the writings of the Arizal where he talks about deep secrets, which Rabbi Nachman connects to the clapping of the hands. And he told the man, read this, read it in front of me. And the man had no choice. He read in front of Rabbi Nachman this passage from the Arizal's teachings. And Rabbi Nachman again explained, based on it, the deeper meaning, how it's connected to clapping the hands. And still, the man refused to accept the teaching of Rabbi Nachman. So he went back home after that, back to Nemirov, and his child became even more and more sick. So now, by the Friday before the last Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah, this man from Nemirov heard that Rav Nosson will be traveling to be by Rabbi Nachman in Breslov for the Shabbat preceding Rosh Hashanah and then Rosh Hashanah. So he begged Rav Nosson to give a little kvittel, a little page, a little pidyon, a redemption money to bring to Rabbi Nachman to daven for his dying son. Rav Nosson arrived in Breslov on Friday, and he brought the little kvittel, the little page to daven for this man's son. And Rabbi Nachman said shockingly, "What? The boy is still alive?" And when Rav Nosson heard this, he was shaken, because he understood from the tone and the expression from Rabbi Nachman that this child is doomed to die. And Rabbi Nachman said, if the father would have listened to me and to bend himself a little to accept my advice about clapping the hands, which also mitigates harsh judgments, then there would have been a chance to save his son. But now, and Rav Nosson tried to justify the man, saying to Rabbi Nachman, but what do you want, Rabbi Nachman? He's a follower of somebody else, another Rebbe, who's one of your opponents. What do you want from him? Of course, he can't fully accept your teachings if his faith in you is not that strong. So Rabbi Nachman said, nevertheless, nevertheless. In other words, he said, Rav Nosson, that his test to accept is still a test, and it's a bigger test, but it's not an excuse. And in the end, this man's son passed away. But it was all connected to this teaching of clapping the hands to show the power of clapping hands during the davening, how this can do many things. Of them, like we just mentioned, it mitigates harsh judgments. Of them, the main focus of what we're holding on the seminar program, the idea of concentration, of eliminating very foreign thoughts, distracting, disturbing, idealistic thoughts, thoughts of heresy that come to bother a person during davening, because as is known, the thoughts seem to come to a person specifically when he's trying to pray. That's when they really attack him, right? So we need all the help we can muster to focus on the words of praying. And this is where we left off. We're going to continue now in the Bridge Likutei Moharan. And in case I didn't say shalom to everybody, I'm very happy to see all the new people joining in the class and familiar faces or familiar names like Mercedes, Teresa. Thank you. Welcome, Mrs. Rosenberg, and Tom, of course, and Beryl. Thank you for everyone for joining. Visit the show. Okay, we're going to continue now. I'm continuing with the bridge Likutei Moran, lesson 44, part 1 of the bridge Likutei Moran, not part 2, so don't get mixed up. Part 1, and we're holding in paragraph number 4, where Rebbe Nachman developing proofs and sources to show the power of hand clapping. And it's just so beautiful because as you see how Rebbe Nachman is showing you its source in the Torah and how the proofs fit in so beautifully, so you understand the value of this teaching. Okay, so before we just continue, I just want to type in something. Okay, here we go. So where we left off, paragraph number 4. So it says like this, lesson 44, paragraph number 4, the Zip Perush. This is amazing. This teaching here is really, really cool. You want to say it like that? So he says like this, the Zip Perush. With all the teachings we mentioned until now, a person has to see to it that he's clapping his hands in davening in order to transform the air that he's in to the holiness of the Holy Land, the land of Israel. So he says, based on that, Vizet Perush, this now, with this insight, you can see that this is the meaning of the following verse from the book of Hosea. Hosea chapter 12, verse number 11. The verse reads like this, Uvyad hanevi'im adameh, where the literal translation is like this, and in the hands of the prophets I will appear, I will be formed, I will be imagined. Adameh. The word adameh is similar to dinyon, medame, imagination, the imaginative faculty. So the verse, the literal translation is Hashem is saying, and in the hands of the prophets, through the hands of the prophets, through the prophecy revealed by the prophets, Hashem is saying, Adameh, I will express ideas. Adameh, I will give imagination, creative imagination to express what my prophecy is. That's the literal translation. Now look how Rabbi Nachman explains it in an amazing way. He says like this, Alideh mechiat kaf, the word uviyad, the verse, in the hand, literally the hand, right? In the hand. So he says in the hand refers to clapping the hands. Alideh, because it's in ubiyad, in the hand. You put one hand inside another hand, right? So it's hand in hand. It's hand in hand. So it's ubiyad, ubiyad, and in the hand, mechiat kapayim, in the hands of the prophets, Adameh. Look how he says, Aideh mechiat kaf, through clapping the hands, which is through the hands, al yedei yadayim. Hadiburim, the words you speak in the prayer, nidbarim, are being spoken the admat kodesh, on holy soil, holy land. So he's going to explain the verse. Nevi'im, prophets, the word nevi is similar to the word for speech, lashon dibur. How do I know that? He says in brackets here, take a look at Rashi in the Chumash, in the book of Exodus, Shmot, chapter 7, where Hashem commands Moshe, who refuses to speak to Egypt, to Pharaoh. So Hashem says to Moshe, Aharon will be your prophet. Navi, he'll be a prophet. And Rashi explains there on the word he'll be a prophet, that he will express and speak what you have received from God. You will say your first initial words to Aaron, and Aaron will then relay it, bring it, back to Pharaoh. They'll relate and express it and speak it to Pharaoh. Sorry, Mrs. Rosenberg, lesson 44 of the abridged Likutei Moran, abridged, Rav Noson's version of the abridged Likutei Moran, lesson 44, paragraph number 4. That's what we're holding. Okay, so going back, so Nevi'im Lashon Dibur. So now going back to the verse. The verse has 3 words. Uviyad, Nevi'im, Adameh. So Rebbe Nachman says, Uvyad, through the hands, which means through what's in the hands, ubeyad, in the hand, which means clapping the hands, putting palm to palm, fingers to fingers, hand to hand, hanevi'im, through that hand clapping, hanevi'im is made speech, because navi, like Rashi says, means speech. Dibur is made speech, okay? So then, adameh, the word adameh, we said, means I will express, I will use the creative imagination of the prophecy to express myself. But the word adameh is also related to the word for earth, adama. And when we say adama, about specifying which land, which earth, it is normally in Holy Scripture writings a reference to the soil of the Holy Land. When we say ha'adama, just like by itself, adama in itself, earth, so it's referring to a specific type of soil in earth, namely the holy earth, the holy terrain of the land of Israel. So he reads adameh, which is amazing because the literal translation means I will creatively, imaginatively express adameh, to compare. I will be expressed and compared, through figurative descriptions. And he says this is similar to the word adama. And Rabbi Nachman is deep. He's not just making a connection because it's like etymologically the same wording. You have aleph, dalit, mem, hein, adame, and in earth you have adama, but it goes deeper. In that, the soil you stand on is also a projection of your imagination. You can decide where you stand, or you can be standing in the United States or Antwerp or Germany or London or Africa or China or Malaysia or Tibet, right? But if you do the right configuration, you can transform that land wherever you are to the holiness of the land of Israel. So it's a figure of your imagination. It's the way your perception and your perspective is that determines the quality of the earth that you're standing upon. This is amazing. So Adameh, which means I will imaginatively compare myself to, is directly connected to the word for earth, Adama, because you can choose if the land you're standing upon is the land of Israel or not. Take a look at this week's Parsha coming up, Truma, where the whole mitzvah of making a tabernacle, a traveling temple in the desert, the whole idea, Rav Nosson says, was fascinating. In the middle of the desert is a wasteland. There's nothing there. There were snakes, scorpions, nothing is there. And all of a sudden, the Jews would erect a tabernacle, making that spot the holiest place in the entire world, right? And where the Shekhinah, the divine presence, was now present. The holy ark was there, the altar, the menorah, all the holy vessels of the temple, the holy temple which stood in Yerushalayim in the holy temple, were also here in this traveling tabernacle. And it was meant to draw the godliness, the awareness, the feeling of God, which is basically the idea of the Holy Land. Okay? And then when the Jews would move on in the desert, they would dismantle this tabernacle. Okay? And once totally removed, the exact same spot, which is where the tabernacle once stood, it resumes to its original status of being a wasteland desert. What in the world is going on? What is it? For at 1 second, the earth, the soil of the earth of the desert, was transformed to the holiest place on the world, where God's presence was drawn to. And then once it was dismantled and they moved on, anyone can walk there and anyone can take foot there. What's going on? This is the idea of the soil you tread upon. It's up to you to determine where are you walking. Are you walking on the soil of the Holy Land, or you're walking on the soil of the diaspora of Chutzlar, which is where the earth is impure and the air is impure. You decide, you determine it. It's up to your perspective, your level of holiness, your yearning and desire, which will determine where you stand. Rebbe Nachman once said about himself, after returning from the Holy Land, wherever I go to the Holy Land. An amazing statement. And wherever he walks, it's found in the book Chaim Moharan, Tzaddik in English. Wherever I walk, I tread upon the Holy Land. He reached a level that even though he was walking in the Ukraine, in Breslov, in Uman, in all these cities, Zaslav, Brody, Lvov, all of these Ukrainian hick-town villages, wherever he stepped foot upon, was able to transform where he was walking on to the level and the holiness of Eretz Yisrael. This is how Adameh, the Medame, the imagination, Dimyon, which is your creative imagination, is connected to the Adama. It's up to you where you're standing. You can transform anywhere you're standing in the world to the Holy Land or not. By the way, we have the power to do this because, as is known, that the foundation stone which is located under the Holy Temple here in Jerusalem, under the section of the Holy of Holies, which was the foundation stone, meaning the rest of the world was formed from this one rock under the earth at that point. So every point in the world, anywhere, China, Australia, America, Mexico, you name it, they're connected with these types of gidim, these type of veins, these tunnels, secret hidden tunnels, which connect every spot on the earth, underground, under, all the way to Yerushalayim. So wherever you're standing in the world, you can be connected to Yerushalayim. I'll just be a bit personal. I remember me myself, before I got married, I was still a teenager. Not teenager, sorry. I was 22 years old. I had been in Jerusalem for about 5 months, and I came back to Toronto to meet my wife. All right. And when I came back to Toronto from Jerusalem, I was on such a high from the light I experienced in Yerushalayim, experiencing the festival of Purim, Purim where the light of Eretz Yisrael is revealed at such a high level. I hope, God willing, as we get closer to Purim, we will connect the ideas of this lesson, the concepts of this lesson to Purim. But I felt it so powerfully that when in Toronto, going to meditate in the forest and the fields there, I felt every step I was walking was connected directly to Yerushalayim. I couldn't forget about Yerushalayim. I was so baked on being in the holy city of Yerushalayim that even in Toronto, I felt so connected. I felt like I wasn't in the diaspora. I was still in there. My head was still there, and my feet under the earth, imagining, picturing here, Adameh and Adama, picturing with my imagination and believing with my imagination that my feet, the earth under my feet, even in Toronto, far away Canada, Toronto was connected directly under the ground through the Evan Shetiyah, the foundation stone, to Yerushalayim, to the Holy Land. So again, it's up to you, your perspective, to determine where you're standing. And I think we brought the Midrash, we quoted the Midrash in the previous classes, that if a person has the merits, right, if a person has the merits, then the angels come and put earth of the Holy Land under his feet. So he can be in Norway, in Argentina, anywhere, and he yearns so badly to be in the Holy Land, right? So under his feet, angels come to put the earth of the Holy Land. And unfortunately, the opposite is also true. You have a Jew who has the merit of being in the Holy Land physically, but he's not interested in holiness. Just the opposite. He's interested in being impure and very, what's it called, mundane and profane. So, and he doesn't deserve by his actions to be in the Holy Land. So come along angels and they put the earth of the diaspora, which is tameh, impure earth, under his feet, so that he's walking actually in the diaspora. He's not in actually the Holy Land. So again, it's up to your perspective of Adama, Adame. It's not by chance that Rebbe Nachman is connecting the earth to the faculty of imagination. So with that said, the verse reads like this. Let's say the verse again in Hosea. Let's see it again. Uvyad through the hands, in the hands, through hand clapping. Hanevi'im, I get speech, words, adameh, which are on holy soil, admat kodesh. Adameh meaning adama, the land, the holy land. Okay? He goes on, it gets just more and more exciting. All this through clapping the hands. By clapping the hands, your speech is on holy soil. You're speaking words of prayer and holy soil. Think about this. You're no longer in some hick town in Midwest America and just trying to connect to the Lord from your words all the way there, but you're saying words on holy land soil by clapping your hands and davening. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, but it's true. It's something phenomenal, this teaching. He goes on, Gam batel hereg vavadon. Also, by clapping the hands, there ceases to be killing, spilling of blood, avadon, loss of human life. The word avadon also can mean people try to commit suicide. There's less loss of life due to hand clapping from the world. Amazing. He says in brackets here, this will be discussed further in lesson 46 coming up, which we're going to get to. It's part of our seminar. Well, like we mentioned, 44, 45, and 46 are really one lesson. Just the way Rebbe Nachman brought it down, he broke it down into several lessons. So coming up, and when we get to lesson 46, we will go more into this idea of how hand clapping mitigates all types of death, murder, and God forbid suicide from the world. Bibchinat, all this is connected to the verse from the last parsha of the book of Vayikra, Parshat Bechukotai. There's blessings when you have the merit to be connected to the Holy Land and to be standing in the Holy Land while praying. So you also earn the following blessing mentioned in the blessings at the beginning of Parashat Bechukotai. If you remember, Parashat Bechukotai starts off in Bechukotai Telechu. If Hashem says, if you follow my statutes and learn the Torah and stick to the Torah, so that it starts enumerating many blessings. One of the blessings it mentions there is this verse number 6 of chapter 26 of the book of Leviticus, Vayikra. It says like this: "Venatati shalom ba'aretz." Hashem says, "And I will place peace. I will let there be peace in the land, in the Holy Land." Amazing. In other words, when you're truly in the Holy Land, on the holy soil, you have peace. And then the verse goes on, v'chule, dot, 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 etc., etc. Go to the end of the verse. V'cherev lo ta'avor ba'artzechem. And no metal for killing, no instrument of killing made of metal, which is the idea of a sword, which also includes guns and machine guns and bombs, anything made with metal to cause death, lo ta'avor ba'artzechem, shall not even pass in your land. And the Torah is talking about the blessings of really being in the Holy Land. And we're talking about being in the Holy Land in such a context where you're really connected to the positive aspect of being in the Holy Land, the blessings, the bracha, the shefa, the bounty, that's all associated with the Holy Land. So automatically the blessings also associated with positively being in the Holy Land are activated. Like this verse says, V'cherev lo ta'avor ba'artzechem, that there will be no death, no sword, no killing, no loss of life. All that is by being in Eretz Yisrael. You see, it's so important to be in Eretz Yisrael, in your davening. Your davening, which is where you really express your force, because like Rav Nosson says on the prayer on this lesson, our only hope today, our only source that we rely upon today is prayer, supplication, and davening. A Jew reaches many situations in life where he's literally all alone and he's literally in danger. His main weapon to help him at those times, those most difficult times, are prayers. Now, if that's the case, you want to maximize that your prayers should get answered. And to get answered, you need to activate the holiness of Eretz Yisrael in your prayers. Clapping your hands helps you to transport your prayers to be on holy land soil wherever you are in the world. Wherever you are in the world. And this is meant to activate all the blessings that you need in order to get your prayers answered. The qualities of the Holy Land. Okay? So now he goes on. Validei hamchaat kapayim, and through clapping the hands while praying, hatfila, like we said, the prayer, he ba'avirad eretz Israel, your prayer is in the air, the atmosphere of the Holy Land, of the land of Israel. And what happens when you are breathing in the air of the Holy Land, which means you are entering into yourself particles of the Holy Land itself. So it's considered as if you are living in the Holy Land. Vehudar ba'avira the Eretz Israel, and you are actually living, not God. There's two words in Hebrew. There's lagur and ladur. Lagur ba'aretz banu, the sons of Jacob, when they came down to Egypt to meet Yosef, and he asked, why have you come down here? Or sorry, later on, when Yaakov himself came down to speak to Paro, he says, we've come to sojourn. Lagur the Eretz, we've come to sojourn in this land of Egypt. We are not here permanently. We're here only temporarily because of the famine in the land of Israel, right? So the gerut, to be a ger, which is also the Hebrew term for a convert, it's called the ger because of his temporary situation of being from a non-Jewish family and coming back to his roots, right? So he's coming back to his root of being reconnected to his Jewish soul. Now his body also has become Jewish. So he was a ger, and now he's entering. So he's called a ger, continues to be called a ger, to remind him of the value, the greatness of where he came from and where he's going to, not to be belittled and to feel, I have no value. Just the opposite. It's meant to lift up his value. He came from gul, from la gul, which is sojourning, and now he lives. And the word for living, fixed, like when you buy a house, you live in a house, it's called dira. A house, a home, a permanent residence is called dira. So it says here that when now, he's saying here that when you're breathing in the atmosphere of the Holy Land and it becomes part of your breath, part of your prayers, okay, and your prayers are now on the Holy Land soil and also in the air of the Holy Land, and now you are considered Dar Ba'avira Eretz Israel. So now at this point that you've transported yourself in your prayers to be on the Holy Land, but in a fixed sense, you want to be here. So now you consider that you live in the Holy Land. You live in the air of the Holy Land because you're able to activate it whenever you want by clapping your hands during davening. Okay? V'yesh lo Elokim, and you have a Lord. What does that mean? He's referring to a Gemara. The Gemara says in Ketubot, whoever lives fixed, dar, in the Holy Land, it is considered as if he has a God. And whoever lives in the diaspora is considered as if he does not have a God. A very powerful statement, isn't it? So you might say to yourself, so the Jews who live in the diaspora, they're not considered worshippers of God. To an extent, it's true. But however, since every Jew, every normal Jew, every normal devoted, connected Jew to Torah and Judaism has a natural yearning and tendency for the Holy Land, a deep love for Eretz Israel. So that connection allows a person that no matter wherever he is, deep down inside his heart, he yearns to be in the Holy Land. That yearning is already powerful enough to earn him, at least at the lowest level, the title of being someone who lives in the Holy Land. A story that I once heard that there were robbers who wanted to dig open a grave of a wealthy Jew who passed on. There was a wealthy Jew who passed on, and he was buried in the Holy Land. And the robbers assumed that he was buried with his wealth, with his money. Okay, so because the old man was this Jewish man was very stingy, and he had a lot of money, and he wanted to be buried with his money, figuring no one would have the audacity to open up his grave to look for the diamonds and the gold. So the robbers found out about this, and they dug open the grave, and all of a sudden they hear somebody else talking in the grave, screaming, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Open my grave!" The robbers freaked out, panicking, and they just got back to their senses. And they said, "Aren't you the so and so, the wealthy man that just died yesterday, and we're digging open the grave?" They said, "Him? They transported him to my grave in Poland. I'm not him. I am some Jew, certain Jew in Poland." He said, "So what are you doing here?" He said, "My whole life I yearned to have the merit of walking 4 steps in the Holy Land. It never happened. And now that I passed away, the angels came, transported my body into his grave. And this person, because he was so stingy and he wasn't open to doing tzedakah, charity, to the poor people of the Holy Land, which also coming up in this lesson, Rebbe Nachman says, this is another way to connect yourself to the Holy Land by giving charity to poor people living in the Holy Land. So because this man was stingy and he did not give of his money, which was his means, Hashem made it his means to connect to the Holy Land, so he lost that opportunity. He lost that advantage, and angels came and transported him into my grave in Poland, and they brought me into his grave. So the guy you're looking for with his diamonds, whatever, he's back in Poland now. If you want to dig open to get the diamonds that he's buried with, you have to go all the way to Poland to get it. So this is the idea that again a Jew with his yearning can literally be living in the Eretz Yisrael. The greatest format of living is where a person is buried, right? Where you're buried is the land that you acquire. That's where your body is until the resurrection of the dead. So to be buried in Eretz Yisrael is for sure, definitely considered to be living here. I recall his stories I heard about a Breslover, which I assume all of you have heard by now, Rabbi Tzvi Aryeh Rosenfeld. This Rabbi Tzvi Rosenfeld, who lived most of his life in New York, in America, he bought a plot of land on Har Zaitin, the Mount of Olives. He bought a grave, a plot of land for his grave. And whenever taking the bus or driving by the Mount of Olives with his students, he would to point out the window and he would say, "Can you see my house that I have there? You see my dira, my acquired land, my acquired home." And they're trying to figure out what is he pointing to. All he sees is graves. He says, "Yes, my grave that I purchased on Har Zaitin. That is my true dira. That is my true home." It's at a big level for a person to say that and to view life like that. That where I'm going to be buried, that is my true home. Fortunate is the person who's actually buried in Eretz Yisrael. Fine. But going back, whoever now lives in the Holy Land, Rebbe Nachman again in this lesson is helping you to attune yourself to the Holy Land by clapping the hands, changing the air quality to Holy Land air. And this we didn't really explain that much. But if now you have the quality of the air of the Holy Land activated, it also automatically activates the earth of the Holy Land. Because the earth and the air of the Holy Land are directly connected. To explain this a little, just I hope we have some time to explain this idea. There's what's called in the laws of purity and impurity, Tum'at Ohev. To explain, the Torah forbids a Kohen, a priest, who had the privilege and the ability to serve in the Holy Temple, or the holy food eaten by the Kohanim called the Truma, which is the tithed produce, which you have to maintain its level of purity, that it should be eaten in purity. So both the person eating it and the Truma itself has to be maintained in a level of purity. So the Torah forbids a Kohen or the food item called Truma to come into contact with any corpse or any grave, whether Jewish or non-Jewish. If now a Kohen accidentally touches a body, a dead body, whether a Jew or non-Jew alike, okay, or touches a grave of a Jew or non-Jew alike, or Truma also, so that Kohen or that food item is rendered impure. The Kohen now, that means he cannot serve it in the temple until he purifies himself. And the Truma must be burnt. It's lost now. You can't eat it in impurity, so it has to be burnt. Or the Torah gives, the halacha gives other ways to do away with it, but it's not suggested and it's unfortunate. and it's considered a type of a sin in a sense for getting truma impure. Okay. Besides that, there's also what's called tumat ohel, which means that if you have a dead corpse or a grave, all the airspace from the body all the way up to the heavens is also impure. So that if a Kohen walks over a grave, walks over the corpse, he also becomes impure. If the truma also is passed over the body of the corpse or the grave, it becomes impure. Now, all this was the case of in the Holy Land. Okay? Now, in the diaspora, also it applies, but the rabbis of the Gemara, of the Mishnah, they became even more stringent. Look what they said. This is something phenomenal. And we're going to add the explanations offered by commentaries, including Tosfot. Tosfot explains like this, that because the flood waters in the time of Noah spread everywhere in the world except for the Holy Land, and the flood waters, the Mabul, being boiling, super duper boiling hot, and burning and decomposing and melting all the body particles of all the wicked people who were killed in the time of the generation of the flood. So that means the body particles were being carried by the flood waters everywhere. Because that's one of the explanations Rashi gives for a mabul. Mabul in Hebrew is a flood. And Rashi says, Balaletakol, Bilbeletakol, that the flood waters mixed everything up. Everything got mixed up and everything became upside down. So that whatever was, like if you want to say, located in Asia Minor, was transported possibly to already North America, to South Africa, wherever, anywhere outside of the Holy Land, the floodwaters, which were in constant motion, that being the characteristic of water. Seawater, for example, is there's always waves, there's always movement and movement. So the waters of the flood transported the impure body particles of the dead corpses of the generation of the flood. So that when the flood waters began to reside and go down, so it's assumed that the body particles of the people of the generation of the flood were also scattered anywhere. So now the rabbis instituted, since we're not sure that when a Jew steps on the ground in the diaspora, if possibly body particles left from the generation of the flood are deep under the earth, and the halacha is that even if you walk over body particles of a dead corpse, a kohen or truma walks over body parts in the earth of a grave, right? So the whole air section above that body is also rendered impure. And since the rabbi said we can't guarantee we know the status of the earth outside of the borders of the Holy Land, because in the Holy Land, the flood waters didn't reach. So there's no body particles from the generation of the flood. But outside of Israel, there are body particles from the generation of the flood. So because of that, the rabbis also deemed the air of Chutz La'aretz Tameh, so that a Kohen who just for a second he let's say he's transported by the air over the body part of over the land of the diaspora, he becomes tameh. Or scenario where truma, the halacha, the Gemara goes into funny details how it can be, but they give a possible scenario which I won't go into because it's a bit complicated, where truma technically passes over the earth of the diaspora, it also becomes tameh. And from here, this expression that the air of the diaspora is impure because of the earth of the diaspora. Okay? So from here, you see that the air is connected to the earth. And the opposite is also true. The air of the Holy Land is connected to the earth. And it's activated ABBA. In other words, what Rebbe Nachman says here, by clapping your hands in the davening, you are now technically in the air of the Holy Land. And if you're in the air of the Holy Land, that must mean you're standing on the earth of the Holy Land. Because just like in Tuma, in impurity, the body of the corpse under the earth renders the air above it impure. So the opposite is also true. that the air, if there's impure air, that must mean that there's impure earth. And the opposite, if there's pure air, that must mean there's pure earth. So if a Jew now merits by clapping his hands and davening to transform the air, the atmosphere around him to the air of the Holy Land, so automatically it's connected to the earth. And since a person doesn't stand suspended in midair, he's standing on earth. So the earth, it can't be that you're breathing the air of the Holy Land and your feet are in the diaspora. They work together. The earth, the Adama, and the Avir, the air, work together. So if now you've merited transforming the air around you to the air of the Holy Land, so it must mean you're also standing in Holy Land soil. So this is the idea of actually breathing in the air of the Holy Land and standing on Admat Kodesh, on holy soil, holy terrain of the Holy Land. Okay? I hope that was clear. Okay, let's go on. So he says like this. Let's try to finish this paragraph, which is absolutely amazing. He says like this. By clapping your hands, the air that you are davening in has become transformed to the air of the Holy Land. And you live in the air of the Holy Land. Like we said, the Gemara says that whoever lives, physically lives, but also in our context, this is called living, by clapping your hands, transforming your air and earth into the air and earth of the Holy Land. So it's considered like you have a God, because like the Gemara says, it's considered they have a Lord. You have a God. In other words, you have the direct divine providence when you live in the Holy Land. That's the advantage of clapping your hands in the davening, is that it makes you be in the Holy Land, where the quality of the Holy Land is direct divine providence, direct face-to-face connection with godliness, with Hashem, with spirituality. It's direct, as opposed to in the diaspora, where everything is hidden and concealed and indirect. It's topsy-turvy, one day like this, one day like that. When a Jew is in Eretz Yisrael, it's fixed in the holiness. It's fixed in the awareness that God is the Lord and God is running your life. Okay? So then he's considered living in the air of the Holy Land, and he has a God. Then batel, as a result of this, becomes nullified, machshavot avodah zarah, all types of thoughts of idolatry that come to attack you while davening, ukfirot, atheism. Thoughts of idolatry and atheism on a very practical level are also thoughts of a person's agenda. If you take a look, unfortunately, when a person davens a lot and is distracted with thoughts, most of the distractions is, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to pay this bill, I can't believe I did this, I can't believe I did that. It's the person doing. And the whole idea of davening is exact opposite of me doing. The idea of davening is Hashem is doing everything. That's why I'm davening. Why am I davening to Hashem? Because I believe He's the one who can do. So when a person is faced with distracting thoughts, if they're thoughts of idolatry, it's reflected in this idea that the person is bothered by thoughts of what he has to do. He has to do. When you are very overwhelmed with thoughts of accomplishment, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. So automatically, if it's accomplishment, it's very easy to forget that it's God who's the one who's doing, and I'm just the puppet playing the role. Because that's the trick of living in this world and doing mitzvot and serving Hashem. On the one hand, we're shown that it's us doing, it's us, it's me learning Torah, it's me doing mitzvot, it's me getting married and having children and eating matzah and Pesach, it's me putting on tefillin, it's me putting on tzitzit, it's me davening the morning prayer, it's me. But at the same time, it's really God. I'm serving Hashem. If it wasn't with Hashem's help, I couldn't do anything. So He gets all the credit for enabling me and allowing me to do. So when a person is overwhelmed with thoughts of accomplishment, he forgets the part that Hashem is the one really doing. Like the verse says, Ki miyadecha hakol, right? Umiyadecha natanu lach. Hashem is saying, the verse is reading, Hashem, everything is from your hands, and from your hands you've given to us. That I'm able to do, I'm able to breathe, I'm able to walk, I'm able to talk, I'm able to hear, to listen, to eat, to function. Everything is thanks to God. It's thanks to Hashem. That now is Emunah. And the opposite where no, I have to do this, I have to do the laundry today, I have to change the sheets, I have to change the diapers, I have to go to work, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to make sure I pay the bill on time, I have to call this person before he goes on vacation. So it's I have to, I have to, I have to. Those thoughts are called, believe it or not, idolatry thoughts. Because they're coming at the time of davening, and you're supposed to be focusing that Hashem is the one doing everything. That's why you're davening. The fact that you're davening to Hashem is to show and illustrate that you believe that He's the one who does everything, and I'm asking Him to help me to do that I can do. And now, when I'm overwhelmed with thoughts of me doing, me doing, me doing, this is what we call thoughts of idolatry. Let's continue this amazing paragraph. Okay. And by clapping your hands, you can get rid of these thoughts. The goal of the clapping of the hands is to transport you into the air of the Holy Land. And the quality of the air of the Holy Land is specifically this, that it reminds you that God is in charge. God is in charge. God is in charge. Okay? So it's nullified these thoughts of idolatry and atheism. Hanikraim keneged ha'emunah. They're called keneged. They're what's called opposed, against faith, which is prayer. Right? Bechinat yadav emuna. And prayer is called faith. Like we see, this also fits in with Purim coming up. It says in the battle against Amalek, when Moses sent out Yeshua to fight Amalek, and Moshe was standing on a high cliff with his hands extended, and he had Aharon on one side, and Hur, his nephew, the son of Miriam, on the other side, holding up his hands. And it says there, Vahi Yadav Emunah, and Moshe's hands were faithful. What is this funny wording? And Moshe's hands were faithful. So Onkelos, the famous ger, the holy ger, whose translation is 100% divine prophecy, he translates the word of Yadav Emunah, his hands were faithful, as Prisan Itzlo, spread out in prayer. Moshe's hands, when Yeshua was in battle with Amalek, Moshe's hands were spread out in prayer that Yeshua should succeed in overpowering Amalek. And so it's amazing. The Torah reads, Yadav Emunah, his hands were faithful, and Onkelos translates the words as spread out in prayer. And here Rebbe Nachman is using this proof to show clearly, I mean, we understand the idea on our own, that prayer is faith. Because if you didn't have faith, you wouldn't daven in the first place. The fact that you're praying shows that you have faith. But here, Rebbe Nachman brings a solid proof connection that prayer is faith directly. Like Onkelos translated, your hands are faithful as spread out in prayer. Okay? So, Bechina Yadav Emunah, Tigim Onkelos. Onkelos translates hands spread out in prayer. Prisan B'tzlo, spread out in prayer. His hands were faithful. Translated as spread out in prayer. The tikkunam alidei tmidim, and the rectification is through what's called tmidin. Tamid means constantly, and constantly, Rabbi Nachman says in the lesson inside, is a reference to the Holy Land. Because about the Holy Land, it says the verse, Tamid ene Hashem Elokecha ba bereshit hashana ad acharit shana. Constantly, the eyes of God are on the land from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Meaning, divine providence is directly and always on Eretz Yisrael. So he's saying here, Tamidin, Keneged Tiknum. Tamidin is Eretz Yisrael. Keneged, he said Keneged means the opposite of faith, which is the distracting idolatry and atheistic thoughts coming to bother a person when davening. In other words, Tamidin, Eretz Yisrael, the Holy Land, Keneged, when you're faced with opposition, opposing thoughts to ruin your davening. So Tiknum, the Holy Land, which is Tamid, can fix these thoughts, which are the exact antithesis of faith, and by extension, the antithesis of the Holy Land. All this is through clapping the hands. We'll stop at this point. Okay? Please do a favor, do yourself a favor. Take a look at Noson's beautiful prayer on this lesson. It's one prayer called Prayer 44, 45, 46. It's one prayer. Rav Noson's 50th gate, part one. Please take a look at that prayer. And please, if you have any questions, please get back to me. You have my email address. I'll pick it over here. It's Meir E, Meire at Breslov.org. There you go. Let's see if I can punch it on Facebook Live if I have access still. No, let's see if I can punch it in here. Yeah, I think I can. All right, there we go. So for those people on Facebook Live, you can contact me also at this email address, Meir E, Meire at Breslov.org. Shalom, everybody. Thank you for joining the class. May you see a major change in your davening, at least like I have. May you really, really see a change in your prayers. May you feel the connection to the Holy Land in your davening, any time of the day, anywhere you are in the world. All the best. Please be in touch. Have great shalom.